What if I told you that this awkward fellow was peak physical performance? Okarun is Dandadan's most popular character. He resonates with fans so much, and for good reason. His growth and development across the series are simply unparalleled as he starts his journey as a no-name nerd and eventually evolves to become a powerful and passionate man. He's fervently dedicated to his friends, constantly pushing past his own capabilities to become stronger, and is even sought after by a plethora of women. Although he only has eyes for one. But how did this happen? What is so special about Okarun that he could transform from this into this? In this video, I'm going to analyze Okarun's character, his growth, his love, his soul, to present his journey from simply being a boy named Ken Takakura into someone to supersede the Ken Takakura. And be warned guys, the second half of this video is going to contain spoilers, but I'll let you know when we switch to spoiler content later in the video, so don't worry about it just now. Let's just get into it. Dandadan first introduces Okarun as a total loner. He's ignored by his whole class, and when he isn't, he's just bullied for being an outcast. His fascination with the occult, his aesthetic, and his social awkwardness have led to him being considered kind of a strange guy, and an easy target. He's far from a powerful presence and is walked over by just about everyone. It's clear as day that he's a bit unusual when he first interacts with Momo after she stands up for him, and this is how he approaches her. His first interaction with Momo is pretty unconventional and a bit confrontational, with him stuffing his occult obsession in her face. It's pretty intense, and it doesn't do much in the way of relaxing the notion that he's a total otaku with zero social skills. But at this stage, that is kinda just who Okarun is. And how could we blame him? I mean, who else could he be? His whole life he's been nothing but a punching bag for others. He's never seen by anyone, and when he is seen, it's not in a favourable light, just because of who he is. His response to this has been to regress into himself and use elements of his personality that are typically used as weapons against him as a sort of armour to protect himself. As a defence mechanism, this makes all the sense in the world. He obsesses over the occult as a way of offsetting the pain of his loneliness. He searches inward for purpose and uses this link as a way to find hope. A hope that aliens do exist, and a hope that maybe they would accept him. But this is just a mask. One that he wears to cover up the fact that he does desperately want friends. Because this unattainable truth that he doesn't want to be alone is just too painful to accept when nobody wants him. After all, what are the odds that somebody like him could make a true friend? This speaks to a deep-seated insecurity within Okarun, one that he appeals to help him cope with his loneliness. But this defense mechanism is a double-edged sword of sorts. While it may serve as armor to protect him from the pain of rejection, it also serves as a barrier to stop him from being able to connect with others. When Momo stands up for him, his inner self desperately wants to reach out to her. This is his chance, his moment to make a friend with this girl. Someone unlike everybody else. The only time that Okarun has ever been seen has been to be bullied. This girl, Momo, stood up for him and saw him for the first time in his life as a person with value. So he fights through the fear of rejection, and he reaches out to her, but of course through the only avenue that he knows, the occult. Grabbing his magazine, he chases her down and starts to go on about the occult, but he comes on too strong, which leads to Momo shutting him down, which hurts a lot. Momo's outburst here is partially a consequence of her own stuff that she's got going on in her life, what with her boyfriend just kicking her to the curb, literally. But regardless, being rejected in this way is the exact situation that Okarun tries to avoid by wearing his mask. Earnestly trying to befriend someone and being rejected is so painful. Exposing himself like this is a moment of vulnerability. Okarun shows Momo a slither of his real self, and the fact that he wants to pursue an actual friendship with her. Unlike being bullied for his superficial self, this is a very personal rejection, which hits so much harder. because he hoped that this would be different. When Momo shuts him down, it's a confirmation that he is a weirdo, and that he isn't good enough to have friends, and that he deserves to be alone. Fortunately for him, Momo is compassionate and caring, and she recognizes what she's done and quickly tries to match his weird energy by talking about her fascination with ghosts. Okarun quickly bites back by laughing at the notion that Momo thinks ghosts are real, which turns into a full-blown argument. She laughed at something that he holds dear to him, and he plays this game of verbal tit for tat. And this is something that becomes a defining part of their early relationship dynamic. They challenge each other to go to hotspots for their interests, in a contest to prove to the other that they are right about the occult and ghosts, respectively. And this is where it all begins. While making fun of Momo may seem a bit counterintuitive to becoming friends, I actually think that this represents a healthy change for Okarun. Challenging Momo creates friction, but it also drives the two of them to go out of their way to prove something to each other. Not to mention that this is also directly harnessing his love for the occult, rather than just having to pretend that it doesn't exist. He's using his love for all things alien and making that a central connection between them. This also provides some space for Momo to open up as well, showcasing her own weird fascination with ghosts, something that she would also likely be judged by others for. By not shying away from his true self, Okarun is able to create a unique space for Momo to do the same. The authenticity of their relationship is established from this first interaction and carries through at every moment going forward. At school, there's the weight of society on their shoulders, but here, despite being in separate locations, they can just chat like normal people without the potential for social expectations to come crashing down upon them. The superficiality of Momo and Okarun being from separate worlds simply melts away as they chat on the phone, with the conversation getting deeper, more personal. Okarun and Momo can come to an understanding that they aren't that different underneath it all. Momo's fascination with ghosts stems from her deep love for her grandma, and Okarun gives Momo the space to let this weirder part of her personality shine. He simply listens and provides her with a safe space for honesty. However, when Momo asks him about why he cares about aliens, he still can't bring himself to admit the truth. He's embarrassed and insecure about the fact that he's never had a friend, and isn't ready to open that part of himself up to Momo just yet. Okarun plays his feelings close to his chest for now, whereas Momo wears hers a bit more on her sleeve. There's a wonderful moment here where Momo tells Okarun that he's so much more forthcoming on the phone, and he gently lets Momo know that he thinks she's easy to talk to, indicating how natural this relationship is, even in these early stages, and the fact that he is starting to feel quite comfortable with her already. He's been given a chance. This is probably the first time that he's hung out with another person outside of school, and despite the fact that he is closed off, this all means the world to him. When Momo is captured by the Serpos and Okarun is possessed by Turbo Granny, he arrives through the phone to save her. He fights the Serpos and reveals the truth about why he's so fascinated by aliens. No one has ever accepted him, and so he thought that aliens would, because he is considered so weird as though he were an alien himself. Surely these otherworldly creatures could understand him. But they never came to him. They never found him, and they never saw him. Only one person has ever gone out of their way to truly see Okarun, and that is Momo Ayase. To Momo, this was just a moment to stand up for someone who needed her help, a split-second decision to do the right thing. But to Okarun, this is so much more. There is a depth to Okarun that is just waiting to be unlocked, a hidden layer to himself that he has the potential to change his world, and the world of those around him. He just needed somebody to give him the opportunity to be this man, to give him a chance. And that someone is her. Being ignored and alone is one of the most painful things in the world. He's been isolated in the dark for his whole life, and then suddenly this light cuts through that darkness and shines on him. Momo acknowledges him. And beneath the mask, this is all that Okarun has ever wanted. and he is willing to do anything to protect that. He expresses that he'll even turn into a monster if it means that he can save her. This passion, this dedication to her is a surprise to Momo, who's shocked by what she's seeing. On the surface, Okarun seems so powerless in life, yes, but that's just simply because he's never had anyone to fight for. Fired up by purpose, by Momo, his passion is ignited and we see him for who he really is. Momo shouts to him to show them what kind of man that he is, and this scene shows us our first glimpses of who Okarun really is underneath. The power, the passion, and the dedication of a real man. Outside of the ship, as the two of them decide to work together to recover Okarun's pickle, he asks Momo to wear his clothes, out of respect for her privacy, and he then utters that he's an awkward fellow. A line by Momo's famed Ken Takakura, and then he reveals that his name is just that, Ken Takakura. As hilarious as this is, because at this point he couldn't be further from her idealized version of Ken Takakura, it also carries a grand weight. This is Dandadan telling us that this boy, this dork, is her perfect love, even if he doesn't seem like it. He has a lot of growing to do, but now that he has her, he can begin his journey into the Ken Takakura that he is underneath. After all, that's just how love starts, you know? In the following chapters, we see that Okarun's low self-esteem is a part of his character that holds him back constantly, and is something that he has to overcome as he bonds with Momo as a friend. Simply put, he just doesn't value himself, and he doesn't really believe that other people should either. The only way to free Okarun from Turbo Granny's curse is to go to her tunnel and defeat her in a race. Despite the fact that the only reason that he can hold the curse at bay is because of Momo's powers, he still asks her to let him go alone, and he tells her that everything that happened up until now has been his fault. The way that he speaks to Momo shows how little confidence that he has. While he is trying to be respectful of the fact that she isn't wearing any clothes, he can't look at her, and he isn't even able to string together full sentences at times. It's to the degree that Momo is just able to rename him from his actual name, as she can't bear to hear it. At this point, Okarun is a bit of a blank slate in a way. We caught a glimpse of what drives him in the Serpo ship, just like we peered into Momo's incredible power potential. However, now he's being reduced dramatically. He's lost his name, his free will because of the curse, and he's even been stripped of his clothes. And most importantly, his pickle. As a blank slate, we see him at his least developed stage, and from here we witness him build up across the series. He's kind of just like a level 1 character right now. When Momo and Okarun are arguing outside of her bedroom, Momo tells him that she was never interested in the paranormal talk, and that he was the one who forced the conversation on her when they first met, which prompts Okarun to open up about why he did that. He chased after her because he didn't want to let the moment to make a friend slip by. After wanting a friend for his entire life, he knew that he couldn't let this opportunity to talk to Momo slide away. This would be sweet if it weren't so tragic. Okarun goes on to say that he should have known that this was a mistake, that he and her are from different worlds, and that someone like him, a loser, should never have tried to befriend someone like her. Doing this is what got her caught up in all this trouble, and Okarun apologizes to Momo for everything, telling her that she can go back to pretending he doesn't exist after all is said and done. The heart of Okarun's confidence issues stem from the fact that he truly sees himself as worthless. Like his loneliness has convinced him that he is somehow to blame for being alone. And maybe he is. At least partially. Momo responds by telling him that it makes her sick to hear him say that. She tells him that he shouldn't make assumptions about the way that people feel, and that in some small way closing himself off is a choice that he decides to make. And that this choice is a large part as to why he has no friends. And she's kinda right. He distances himself by convincing himself that he isn't worth anybody's time, which then results in him actually never trying to let anybody in, which guarantees that he'll be alone. This cuts deep because on some level Okarun knows that she's right. I mean, we're literally seeing this play out with Momo right now, as he's practically trying to convince her to go back to ignoring him. I suppose that there's a level of comfort to the idea that it's everybody else that's at fault. Like it's out of your hands that the world is out to get you, and that's why you have no friends. In hearing Momo tell him that he is partially to blame, it confirms to him that overcoming his loneliness means that he is going to have to change, which is the hardest thing in the world to do. Overcoming insecurity and developing his confidence is a central theme to Okarun's character. She tells him that he shouldn't tell her that she should just ignore him, and that she wants to talk to him about the paranormal, just like usual. Ultimately, Momo doesn't actually want to not chat with him about the paranormal or the occult, she's just being herself. Her relationship with Okarun is built on this semi-argumentative demeanour. It's sort of their unique flair. Whether he likes it or not, they're friends now. He takes a moment to be vulnerable and then he insults her, causing them to fall back into arguing. It may be played for laughs, but I think he took it on board. Okarun needs to take an active role in his future and his relationships, especially the one that's developing with Momo. We see Okarun step up to the plate in this upcoming fight. When he and Momo are up against the wall, he tells her that he's going to fight it. He decides to take an active role and turns to fight. And this is where his yokai form is finally unleashed. He blasts into action, grabbing Momo to save her from the alien in a badass new, otherworldly form, and then he gets depressed. Power users' yokai forms are really interesting in Dandadan and reveal a lot about their users' inner selves. And here we see another side to Okarun. Up until now, we've only managed to infer how Okarun must feel inside from his action. The fact that he seeks Momo as a friend infers that he must be lonely, and his lack of confidence indicates that he must feel down. But in his yokai form, he speaks more directly to what lies beneath. He's depressed and bummed out. Questioning the point of his existence, he even says that the world would be better off if he were just gone. While it's played for a funny moment, because the raw shock of his personality shifting is so dramatic, this does align with Okarun's troubles in life. As he steps up to face the Flatwoods monster, he laments that he's likely going to be useless in the fight, a reflection of his perceived impotence in life. But he steps up anyway, and takes on the alien. He does a good job, but his abilities are limited, and Momo has to step in to save them both. And later on, after encountering Momo Ayase and being reunited with Momo after the fight, Okarun apologizes for his battle performance and swears next time to be more like her. He isn't going to be a burden, and he's going to step up and rise to the challenge to protect Momo, rather than just relying on her to do everything for him, because he doesn't want to lose her. This moment is important because it shows us that Okarun has come to terms with what Momo said. He's no longer interested in Momo going back to ignoring him, and he isn't ready to let her leave his life. He's going to step up and he's going to help her, like she helped him with the aliens, Turbo Granny, and with the bullies. So when Turbo Granny cheats and catches Momo in her tunnel, Okarun is presented with the opportunity to run, but he doesn't take it. He remembers her face and how she told him that she'll probably end up saving him again. Despite having no powers anymore, Okarun jumps and he suckles on those teats. This is Dandadan. I feel like the answer to the weirdness is Dandadan. He refuses to let go until she frees Momo, which pushes Turbo Granny back into his body where Momo can keep her powers contained. The ensuing action scene against the Earthbound Crab and Turbo Granny is intense, and we get to see Momo and Okarun working together in full form. When all's said and done, they have their first post-fight dinner, and Okarun is prepping to leave. He turns to go home, says goodbye to Momo, and starts to walk away. There is an underlying sensation of finality to this goodbye, as though their time together has reached its conclusion. They were forced together by circumstance, and Okarun has no idea if this is the end. He doesn't know a thing about friendship, and as he wanders away, he contemplates whether goodbye means goodbye or goodbye. and Momo wonders the same thing. So she stops him in his tracks and shouts to him that she's going to see him tomorrow. Okarun has so much growing to do. Even now, after everything they've been through on their shared adventure, he still lacks basic confidence. He can't imagine that they'll spend more time together because he really does see himself as unworthy. Fortunately, Momo's able to see through him and reassures him that they will talk tomorrow. A gift for him, in a way. And at this point in Dandadan, Okarun is just so dense. He gets in his head about things even after this reassurance, and the next day he sees her waiting on him by the school gate, and he can't imagine that she's actually waiting for him. So he ignores her, forcing Momo to act again. But it's still early days, and Okarun has a lot of growing and self-acceptance to go through as he learns what it means to have a friend, as well as to be a friend as well. Slotting back into school life creates some serious friction between the two of them, and introduces some significant hurdles specifically for Okarun. This is the place that has rejected him for so long. Despite his adventure with Momo, it would be so easy to fall back into old habits, especially as he's still lacking confidence in his friendship with Momo. Having this friendship and seeing it thrive publicly with someone like Momo, a popular, cute girl, is a huge challenge for him to overcome. As Okarun walks to class with Momo in the morning, she's energized and chatty, wanting to talk about all things alien with him. Meanwhile, he's struggling to even get out words. As she heads off to her own class for the day, we see how the world treats Okarun on a daily basis. He's shoved, insulted, and pushed around by his class. But he doesn't care, because he finally has an incredible friend in Momo. Like I said earlier, Momo is this beacon of light in the darkness of Okarun's life, and he can happily overcome all the harsh, horrible aspects to his day if it means he can spend a fraction of it with her. And he's had a similar impact in her life as well, which we see as they spend the day dreaming of talking to the other about aliens and ghosts. Not knowing what somebody else thinks of you, or if they're thinking about you at all, is at the heart of so many interpersonal conflicts. These incredible highs that she brought into his life make way for unbearable lows. Having this first friend in Momo is so stressful to him because now it's all that he can think about. Okarun is beating himself up all morning about the fact that he didn't speak back to Momo with the same vigor that she was providing. His nerves got the better of him and he struggled to act, and he vows to do better. The whole morning, Okarun is building up to seeing her again, and as soon as he can, he goes to look for her at lunch. But he can't find her, and so he starts to crumble. His excitement turns to anxiety, which turns to self-loathing. He thinks that she's avoiding him, and that she must now see him as a pest because she's figured out how boring he is. Despite all that they've been through together, and all the effort that Momo has put into reassuring him that she does like him, his intrinsic tilt towards self-hatred and low confidence continue to win out. What Okarun doesn't understand is that these doubts he has are so inwardly focused. His behavior doesn't just impact him. Momo is having similar doubts about whether Okarun finds her annoying, and his reserved attitude toward her in the morning came across as a bit cold to her. By obsessing over his own mind and fears, he's refusing to acknowledge the fact that other people also feel the same insecurities and are terrified of the same social rejections as well. Fortunately, at this lowest point of the search-a-thon, they collide into each other in a totally not a kiss, but kind of also sort of a kiss fashion. The intensity of this moment of running into each other is much more in line with their high-octane adventure the day before, and as a consequence, Okarun just blurts out that he was looking for Momo all lunchtime, and she lets him know that she was doing the same. And he's surprised to learn that she wasn't avoiding him. In fact, she was worried that he was avoiding her. It's a bit awkward, but in the best kind of way. They've come together, literally, and realized that they actually have nothing to feel self-conscious about. But revealing the truth of their excitement to see each other again is completely embarrassing. Before they can even take a second to understand what this all means, Miko and Muko show up and think that they saw them kissing. This forces Momo and Okarun to reject each other harshly to overcompensate for the embarrassment of the moment and avoid looking like they like each other, which really has the complete opposite effect if you ask me. They storm away saying that they absolutely don't want to talk to each other. Of course, neither of them meant it. Especially Okarun, who immediately regrets his actions and thinks about how he actually does want to talk to her, and how he should go and apologize. And just at this moment, his balls are gone. Okarun races to Momo to tell her the news and encounters her in the middle of class, being made fun of for kissing an otaku. We see the conflict between the superficiality of how the world sees Okarun coming face to face with the reality of who he actually is from the perspective of Momo, who's caught in the middle of all of this. His awkwardness and intensity are on full display as he tries to get Momo to come and talk to him on one hand, whereas on the other hand we see society judging him and mocking her for their bond. And Momo is embarrassed by him. To Momo, this conflict is an internal struggle about the fact that she actually does like Okarun, and she shoos him away because that's how she copes with confusing feelings. She buries them and tries to shut them off. But from Okarun's perspective, this shutdown doesn't look like she's self-conscious, it just looks like she's too embarrassed by him, as if her class knowing that they're friends is something that she considers shameful to her, and so she wants him to go away. It confirms to him, in his mind, his most horrifying fear, that he isn't worthy of being her friend in the first place. And deep down, she sees him like everybody else, a nobody. Where 2 nights prior, Momo refused to let Okarun go and face Turbo Granny alone, now she willingly tells him to leave her alone, to face his situation without her. Loneliness hurts, sure, but it hurts even more to know that you had the opportunity to not be alone and then to just lose that all of a sudden. Despite his feelings being hurt, his thoughts still linger on her, wondering if she went home at the end of the school day, which is when Aira bumps into him and pretends that she cares, just as an excuse to make herself feel like a savior, a trait of Aira's that we will explore in depth one day. Something I love about Okarun is that he's just so earnest and honest and naive in his own way. When Aira talks to him, he just kind of basks in the opportunity that someone is talking to him. Even if it's a bit naive, it's a sweet trait. Which is why Momo punishes Aira with a fistful of brain damage by way of wash basin for exploiting that aspect of him. This is a trait that Okarun embodies that Momo values too. When Momo apologizes for her behavior in class, Okarun doesn't linger on it. He accepts her apology and is ready to get back to just being friends again, which is what he's wanted this whole time. As Okarun continues to grow into his own skin, certain challenges are introduced as well, namely that he's torn between 2 different worlds, 2 versions of himself. The version that he is, and the one that he thinks he needs to be. One of these halves embodies his true self, with all the shining qualities and flaws that he really does possess, and the other half is an idealized version of himself. The man that he wishes he could be, that he thinks he must be in order to continue his friendship with Momo. This dichotomy is expressed physically in his yokai form versus his normal self. Unlike normal Okarun, his yokai form is relaxed and laid back and powerful. He also refers to Momo informally, calling her Momo-chan rather than the more formal Ayase-san, showing a deep yearning to be a little bit more laid back and casual with her. He doesn't really notice these feelings bubbling beneath the surface of his psyche until one of the guys in his class points out to him that Momo is actually super cute. Okarun was so caught up in the idea of having a friend for the first time that he didn't even notice that he does find her cute. He immediately starts to beat himself up because he does respect her as well, so he doesn't want to be feeling like he's exploiting her in some way. But this is just an example of him burying his growing crush on Momo deep down. However, when the guy starts to imply that Momo is easy because of some rumor, Okarun switches gears and starts to physically overpower and intimidate him. Like I said, Okarun cares deeply for his friends, especially for Momo. After doing this, Okarun changes back to his normal form, and the rift between his yokai form and his regular form becomes all the more clear. When he is in this form, he stands up for what he believes, and he has the strength to back it up, whereas the doubts and confidence issues that Okarun carries with him are holding him back from achieving this in his real, typical life. After once again failing to act decisively in the fight against Akurosilki, Okarun decides it's time to get tough. One day, another monster will show up, and it will threaten to hurt Momo, and he needs to be ready to fight it and protect her. She needs to be his priority because he shouldn't be doing any of this for him. He's doing this for her. Which is why when he lies to her about what it is that he's up to, only to then be caught out in the lie by Momo, he's punished for it. He wanted to look cool to Momo, to stand out as a capable man, someone that she can rely on for protection, because he really does like her a lot, even though he doesn't really realize that yet. This is beyond friendship and it shows, but by appealing to this side of himself, this vanity, by trying to get strong in secret and lying to her, he's acting outside of the boundaries of who Okarun really is. On the Serpo ship, it was the honesty of Okarun that caught Momo's attention for the first time, and his passion as a consequence of that, and every step of the way since. His respect for her, to tell her the truth, is something that Momo values. Not the superficiality of him just being a tough guy. While this event does force Momo to contend with her growing feelings that she has for him, it also forces Okarun to reassess his behaviour. He's firm with himself, and he rightly blames himself for lying to her and sowing the seeds of what came from it. Although this isn't the same as the beating himself up that he's been doing up until now. He isn't doing this because he lacks self-esteem, he's confidently holding himself accountable for something that he did do. He's taken responsibility for disappointing her, but he still holds strong to the mission, his duty to get tough to protect Momo. There's a new air of confidence about Okarun ever since he reclaimed one of his balls. It's no secret that Okarun's quest to get his balls back is a metaphor for his journey and development as a man. We see Okarun move into a new stage of his personal development in this arc, one which shows him in a more confident light, where he's finally able to start moving past just his anxiety that defined his existence up until now and start to understand what it is that he wants, and who he wants. When fighting the Serpos, the alien businessman, and the Loch Ness Monster, Momo and Okarun are out of sync, and they start to argue. He can see that Momo is really upset with him about what she saw in the courtyard between him and Aira. And he can also see that she's hiding this fact from him, by getting upset and angry in a typical Momo fashion. But he refuses to abide by it. Not because he thinks she's being unfair, but because he cannot bear the idea that Momo has the wrong understanding of what happened. We see a new side to Okarun, not brought on by his powers, but brought on by him. He grabs her by the wrist and tells her to please be straight with him. If she truly does care, he wants to explain himself, not to venerate himself in the eyes of the world. What does he care? The world has never stood up for him, never given him a chance. The opinions of others mean nothing to him, really, so he doesn't care if others misunderstand what happens. Just her. It's why Okarun had no interest in Aira when she tried to kiss him, a beauty in the eyes of the school, because he is fully fixated on Momo, and Momo alone. She gave him the chance to become somebody else, and what he feels is deeper than just friendship. Much deeper. Okarun can't stand the idea that Momo got the wrong impression, and he wants the chance to just tell her the truth. It's here that we see the truth starting to unfold between them. We've constantly thought that Okarun wants just friends, and he does, but that relationship that he has got developing with Momo goes deeper than that. He stands up and is assertive with her for the first time because this is so important. He steps into his confidence and expresses his desire to be honest because of how he feels about Momo. This complete inversion of the earlier dynamic when they were talking on the phone Where Okarun once hid his feelings and Momo was clear about hers, now it's Okarun trying to get Momo to open up about how she feels. The relationship that he shares with her is a central driving force to his growth. Coming to a conclusion repairs the rift between them for now, restoring their broken trust and allowing them to work together to defeat the enemy. Later, Okarun reveals the truth to Momo about what he was doing with Ida when she tried to kiss him. He was working out behind the school to get stronger, when Ida threw herself at him. But despite her beauty, he isn't interested. He's only interested in Momo. Momo asks Okarun why he'd feel the need to get stronger in secret, and he tells her that he wanted to do it to impress her. She laughs at his vanity, but he pushes through and reveals a little bit more, saying more than she thought that he would, and perhaps revealing more to himself than he even realized. He wanted Momo to see him as a man, and to see him as cool. They cross into new territory with each other here, and the true nature of their relationship becomes clearer and more in focus. All because of Okarun's honesty. The two of them connect and grow closer because of this situation. I think Okarun's actions echo further than he realizes, because this is the moment that they first begin to grasp the beginning of the depth of their feelings. But even though Okarun has seen the error of his ways in lying to Momo, now it's time to go further than that, and to stop lying to himself and accept the truth of his feelings for her. The Cursed House arc is the arc where everything changes for Okarun, and the nature of his relationship with Momo starts to drift heavily towards romance. We see the potential for an incredible love between the two of them, but only if Okarun has it in him to acknowledge his feelings and rise to the challenge presented by Momo's first love, Gigi. From the heights of their love at the end of the last arc, Gigi showing up throws a massive wrench in the works and sets Okarun's growth back a lot. The character of Okarun shifts dramatically across this arc, for better and for worse. Gigi immediately appears as a rival for Momo's affection, and it shows, because he can do so many things that Okarun simply can't. Gigi can have a very room hang on his presence. He can talk to Momo casually, and he can even flirt. Or, well, he can try to flirt at least. The point is that Okarun is intimidated. He hasn't had to compete for Momo's attention up until now. He's kinda just had her to himself, and he's managed to connect with her on a one-to-one basis. Gigi's appearance is something that Okarun has no idea of how to cope with, because he embodies a masculinity that Okarun feels incapable of matching. He's athletic, funny, and confident, a stark contrast to the skinny, nerdy introvert that Okarun is. From the moment that he appears, we start to see Okarun's progress with Momo undo a little bit, and all the same old insecurities come bubbling back to the surface, most notably his feelings of unworthiness. After learning that Gigi will be living with Momo, Okarun goes home and is clearly upset. Despite all the effort that Momo puts into reassuring him of their bond, he still can't see past this immovable object that is Gigi. And what he feels is pain, an aching in his heart that he can't quite place, nor can he fully comprehend the nature of what it means about him. In school, Okarun is so upset at the notion of losing Momo to Gigi. He thinks about the idea of her not liking what he likes, and he can't cope with it, blocking it out with the idea of getting strong. While this could be that he's just scared of losing his only friend, it's pretty obvious that this is representative of their deeper relationship. Okarun doesn't know what he feels is love. Or rather, he can't accept it, because accepting it would mean that he has no choice but to act, that he has to fight. Because how could he possibly compete with a man like Gigi? His lack of confidence is something that Okarun has been contending with since the beginning of the series. And while he has powered through this feeling in the past when it's necessary against a clear antagonistic threat, the nature of the threat Gigi introduces is so much more nuanced than that. He's not an enemy, and he's not here to hurt Momo. What it's about is Momo making her decision over who she feels for, and Okarun simply can't comprehend the notion that she could ever like him back. So he buries his feelings, rejects them, and eventually decides it's time to surrender them. Just like at the beginning of the series, Okarun never put himself out there and intentionally put up these barriers to the idea of getting friends, because trying to make friends means being vulnerable, and being rejected in this way is so painful. So yes, he protects himself in the short term, but in the long term it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as it meant it was impossible for him to ever reach anybody. That's how he ends up alone. He never really confronted these feelings and dealt with them at their root. He just powered through. Now we see this at its next level. He fears that trying and having his love rejected would simply destroy him. So much so that he is actually ready to walk away from the woman he loves because he thinks it would hurt less and that she would be better off. Up until he sees Taro and Hana together. Taro pushes past every obstacle in his path. He fights his very nature as an anatomical science model to come to life because of his love, to find his love. Okarun and the gang watch him as he digs through a mountain of garbage to find her, Hana, the dummy that he loves. Neither of these two makes sense, but he doesn't care. Why should he? Life or death, rhyme or reason, none of it means a thing without her. His love is able to transcend the nature of his existence. The two of them are from separate eras, separate worlds. By all reasoning, they shouldn't be together, but why should that stop them? Taru tells her that he wants to run away with her, away from the world that would keep them apart, leaving everything and everyone behind because all that matters is their love. He ignores her hesitations because he knows that letting her go now, even if it's what makes sense, would be something he regrets for the rest of his life. Okarun looks on and he finally grasps the truth. The fears, the doubts, the jealousy, these feelings that have been welling up inside of him since Gigi showed up are brought on by more than just friendship. What he feels for Momo is love. She holds his heart in the palm of her hand. This love that's blossomed within him since the day that they've met, the moment that she stood up for him and saw him for the first time, truly, honestly saw him as more than just no one. A love that's true, and one that he can't let pass by. Everything around him, their backgrounds, society, the world, tells him that it makes no sense. That Okarun, a complete dork, shouldn't be able to win the heart of a girl like Momo. This side of him tells him to give up. This side of him always wins, and this side of him has won over him his entire life, and now here it is, telling him to back down because he is not worthy of this girl. But inside of him, his soul, everything inside of Okarun is screaming. Every part of him is telling him to wake up and see it. See her, see the way that he feels for her. Like Taru, Okarun's soul finally wants to spit in the face of what makes sense. Because if he lets her go, he will lose the only person that he has ever loved and has ever truly seen him. In watching Taro and Hana, Okarun is able to accept the truth that he is in love with Momo Ayase. That every good moment that has ever come into his life, every colour ever shone into the greyness of his existence has been because of her. Who cares what makes sense? Why shouldn't he want to grab her by the hand and run away from the world as well? Nothing can stand in his way. If there has ever been a time to stand up and fight, it's now. Because if he isn't ready to stand tall and fight to win Momo over, then just like Taru, he'll regret this moment for the rest of his life. Trying to win her heart means taking a chance, exposing himself to vulnerability and the possibility of rejection. But he doesn't care. It's worth it for her. Finally starting to overcome his greatest obstacle in life. Himself. He finally accepts his love for Momo. Because he has to. Because he feels it so deeply. He fights for it because he knows he wants it. In wanting this, in wanting her, he finally lets himself feel love. Love that tells him that he does deserve to be happy, and that he is worthy. Sorry, anime only, spoilers from here on out. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to stay updated on all the newest content, or just love Dandadan, check out my Patreon in the description. It's free to join and a great way to keep up with the channel and community. We've got an amazing Discord, everybody's so kind over there. Paid members supporting the channel is always optional, but it's so appreciated, guys. Those of you who already do, thank you deeply. You know who you are, and you guys are what keep me making content. Thank you. Anyway, everybody else, on to spoiler territory we go. While Jiji is introduced as a love rival for Okarun at first, he actually becomes a powerful proponent for his personal growth. Not only as a mechanism for pushing Okarun to recognize his love for Momo, but also as someone that Okarun can learn to empathize with, despite their conflicting interest in her, and establish a unique, true friendship with. After accepting his love for Momo, Okarun decides that he's no longer going to let his insecurities get in the way of what he wants. He's backed down before, but now he's all in. Wrestling with this part of his old self is difficult, and it doesn't just happen straight away. We see this when Jiji is acting playful with Momo and clears away lint from her head. Okarun looks on and initially is intimidated, falling back into his old ways and starting to regress. But in that moment he remembers Taro and Hana and the love that they shared, which reminds him that he needs to stop standing by, scared of reaching out. He needs to act. And he does, which is a dramatic shift for Okarun. For the first time, he's actually stepping into the social fray to secure what he wants. However, in trying to establish himself as a rival in the eyes of Jiji, he slightly overcorrects. You see, love isn't about competition, not really. Love is about choice. Okarun may have had this love build up inside of him without realizing it, but in seeing Taro and Hana, Okarun has decided to choose to fall in love and fight for his right to see that choice through. But Momo also has agency, and she likes Okarun more than he knows, and she isn't just going to choose Jiji on a whim. Okarun's self-confidence is higher than ever, insofar as he actually has confidence now, but he's still insecure about the exact nature of how Momo sees him, and how he should treat Jiji. Okarun wants Jiji to be gone. He only sees the guy for the competition that he represents, and so he treats him as a threat in a way. He still thinks that Jiji exists purely to take Momo away from him, so he tries his hardest to conquer Momo's interest, to outdo Jiji, and even for the first time, make himself the center of attention. All in all, these are kind of unhealthy traits right now. It makes every conversation with Jiji into a life or death exercise to win Momo's interest, which not only objectifies Momo as a mere prize to be won, which she certainly is not, she is a powerful figure, but also creates a massive barrier between Jiji and Okarun, both of which are important friends to her in her life. But if there's one thing to be said about Okarun, it's that he doesn't dwell on negativity very long. Just as he accepted Momo's apology after she shooed him away in class so that they could get on with their friendship, he also sees Jiji in a new light too. When Jiji announces that he wants Okarun to see him as a friend, Okarun feels deeply shameful regarding his behavior on the train. Despite everything, Okarun likes Jiji a lot. And as Jiji conjured these negative traits of self-doubt, competitiveness, and jealousy, he also brings some of the most shiningly positive qualities of Okarun to the surface. His treatment of Jiji as a mere romantic rival starts to relax over time, and a friendship begins forming, one that he values even outside of his relationship with Momo. When Jiji is possessed by the evil eye, Okarun stands on point and faces him. At first, it's done to protect Momo and buy her some time, but over the course of the battle, it becomes clear that he is not facing him down as a love rival. It's wholly different. All the time that he's known Jiji, he's just seen him as somebody to combat, to confront, and he does this here, physically. He fights Jiji for Jiji, to defend a guy who's become his dear friend. It indicates a huge internal shift for Okarun. He doesn't fight from hate or from jealousy, he fights Gigi so he can force the eye to give Gigi back. Even though he views Gigi as a potential threat to his possible romance with the woman that he loves, it doesn't matter in this moment. Okarun has chosen to let all of that fall aside so that he can help his friend. Because Okarun, underneath everything, still does want friends. Loving Momo didn't mean that he had to push others away. He's done that for so long and it got him nowhere in life. Only in opening up to others and the opportunities that they introduce, Momo and Ida, did he start to grow. In fact, the more people he let in, the stronger that he's become. The inner strength is what builds the man that Okarun becomes. Not his feud with Gigi, but the true, honest dedication that he enacts on the world. This is what he brings to the table. And this is what wins Momo's love. It's just him. When in the throes of fighting the evil eye, Okarun formulates a plan to fire Momo up and out of the Tsuchinoko's lair and onto safety. He'll stay behind and fight the evil eye while she goes on to find a way of saving them both. Momo is against this plan at first because she doesn't want to leave Okarun behind to face the fury of the evil eye alone, but he stops her. He's stern with her, telling her that there isn't time to argue. He tells her that he'll handle Gigi and please get out, and then she can come back to help them later. He knows that the threat of the eye is immense, and he also knows that this is the only way, and is ready to sacrifice to see this through. Momo feels something deep and unfamiliar. Fear. Not just of leaving him behind, but of losing him forever. And before she can stop herself, she reaches for him. She grabs him by the hands and stares into his eyes and promises that she will save him, asking him to take care of Gigi. He says he will, and launches her out of the arena. This moment is their first sign of physical intimacy. Despite Okarun's mission to win her heart over, it's her that reaches out to him. Not because of some romantic feud with Gigi, but because she wants to. Like I said earlier, love is a choice, not a competition. Momo chooses to hold him here as she realizes her fears of losing him. The traits that Okarun displays in this moment of intensity, the difference between life and death hanging in the balance, are decisive, protective, and wholly Ken Takakura. Let me explain. The appeal of Ken Takakura isn't just found in his role as an action hero. Sure, he's tough, grizzled, and a manly man, but the true hold that Ken Takakura has is found in Otoko No Roman, a man's romance, when translated literally. Despite the name, it doesn't refer to love or relationships. It's an encapsulation of the idealized vision of masculinity in Japanese cinema, where Western heroes care deeply about expressiveness through emotion, dominance in strength and power, and the glorification of violence as a solution to conflict, and the world admires them as heroes for it, upholding law and morality with charisma. Otoko No Roman, the Japanese hero, is stoic in their feelings, defines strength through endurance and perseverance, and finds no true glory in violence, but always acts with conviction when forced to fight. Ken Takakura is the quintessential example of the Japanese action hero, because he embodies the internal struggle of the tragedy of a man as a burden protector, who acts with duty and honor in a world that struggles to understand them. Unlike Clint Eastwood or a James Bond character, Ken Takakura's roles of samurai, yakuza, and others are defined by self-sacrifice and duty, and his love is demonstrated through these traits too, often seen sacrificing love for duty, as expressed by action. When Momo sees Okarun in this moment, telling her to go on ahead while he stays to fight the eye and save Gigi, she sees him in a whole new light. She looks into him and sees the man beneath the boy, the man ready to act in sacrificial duty, knowing that it could full well lead to his death, and to protect her in the process. Momo idolizes Ken Takakura's ideal of a man, strong, self-sacrificing, and driven by love. And now, in this moment, she sees Okarun as exactly that. Here, she is staring at the man before her, She thought she knew him, the dork, the awkward fellow, but here, now, in the fire of battle, she sees him. A man willing to give everything, asking for nothing. A man that she isn't willing to let go of. Despite the world not understanding him and rejecting him, he has this internal honor that could be only unlocked by having someone to fight for. Every moment that conflict has occurred, he's stood firm, acted with conviction, to do everything that he can to protect his friends. Momo holds his hands, looks into his eyes and promises to return because she has found her Ken Takakura. Okarun has also brought out these traits in Momo too. When she fears that she might have failed to save Okarun, she's ready to sacrifice herself just in the hope that she might be able to save him. It's from this moment that their love starts to form and truly blossom. Not because he outmatched Gigi in impressing her, but because he was just himself. And Momo loves that about him. Their love deepens as these traits continue to flourish within Okarun, and not just towards Momo. In the Evil Eye arc, he chooses to do whatever it takes to protect Gigi's wish to help the Evil Eye and have it join the family, and in doing so, Okarun chooses to sacrifice. Gigi has become his dear friend, and he sees it as his duty to protect the will of his friends, no matter what. The truth is that this is who Okarun really is, a man who is misunderstood and rejected by the world for his whole life. He now has people that he cares for, and he'll do anything to protect them. It takes time, but he understands eventually that the only way to save Gigi is by becoming stronger. His strength isn't something Okarun seeks for domination or for vanity, no. He seeks strength purely to uphold his desire to serve as a protector. He chooses to be the one that the Eye will face going forward because he knows that he wants to protect his friends. Endurance, perseverance, and self-sacrifice. Over the Evil Eye arc, Momo starts to fall deeper into love with Okarun because he is showcasing these traits with a renewed confidence and vigor, because this is just what he sees as right, even if that means stepping up against the grain. Although this is also a way that he expresses his love for her as well. When Momo is working at her part-time job, he waits for her for hours to make sure that she doesn't have to walk home alone. He wants to protect her. He loves her deeply, and this is something that he demonstrates through subtle actions, rather than in an openly passionate or overtly direct manner, more akin to Ken Takakura than a Western hero. He seeks to act not to earn her love, but just because he wants to make sure that she's safe, no matter what, even when she explicitly tells him not to wait. Duty and honor are not bound by preference or fancy, they're driven by a moral code. Regardless of what she says, he wants to ensure that she's protected against the dangers of the world, so he waits for her. Not to impress her, romance is not a reward for him, it's an act, a demonstration. He doesn't appeal to grand gestures, he uses his actions in a subtle way, just as Momo's idealized Ken Takakura would do. Even the awkward fellow line is made famous not because it's a badass one-liner from a film that he was in, no, it's a line that Ken Takakura says during an insurance commercial. The premise being that he's too awkward to express how he feels in words, so he uses his actions, in this case buying life insurance, to show that he cares. Despite being different on the surface level, Okarun holds the core essence of the Otoko No Roman that defines the Ken Takakura that Momo is looking for. She sees this here and holds his hand as she starts to accept and embrace the love that she's found in this dork that she took a chance and stood up for. Okarun has grown into Ken Takakura, but he's not just Ken. He's something else, something more. He's more than just Ken Takakura. He's Ken Takakura. After being defeated and his ball taken away by the Cur, Okarun is unconscious for a long time. We see the role that Okarun fills in the team, particularly through his absence. Despite initially having no notion of friendship, he's become the glue that keeps the team together and strong. Once Momo runs off for Mola, the team starts to fall apart. The event was traumatizing. Gigi and Ida were hurt and Okarun verges on death. They all argue. At first it seems that this is enough to push everybody apart. But part of Okarun is awake and he hears what is happening around him and it hurts him. He presses through the physical pain of his injuries to regain a semblance of consciousness and ask them all to just get along. They're his friends, and he wants them to be together, united even in his absence. His first concern is Momo, ensuring she's safe, thanking goodness that she is okay. Then asking for his friends, Ida and Gigi. He calls them amazing and laments his own inability again before drifting back into his coma. Okarun holds his friends in the highest regard. He pushes them to get stronger, be better, and then he pushes himself to keep up with them so that he can help protect them. This moment brings the gang back together, and it inspires them to improve to protect the world from the alien invasion. While they train, Okarun goes on his own existential out-of-body journey. He's fixed on growing stronger above all else. As I said earlier, he is just a protector by nature. He even overcomes a moment of jealousy that would have destroyed him earlier in the series. After tapping into the power of spirals, Okarun awakens in agony. He can barely move, and he turns his attention to the cling film food beside his bedside. Curry and rice. With a note. He opens it and reads the message, and it's from Momo, saying, "Love ya." His body is barely able to move, but the earpiece that he's wearing, the food beside his bed, the note written in the last possible moment before the battle. Before she left, Momo had faith that he would awaken in time to come and help his friends. And what would be the point of his growth if he failed to step up at this moment? What kind of man would he be if he didn't push through this pain? He reads it, this note, and he eats the curry, reinvigorated by the concern, care, and faith that she put into him. She knew that he would not let them down. So he can't let her down. Because if she believes in him, then he has to believe in himself. So he eats the curry and he locks in. Using all of his newfound powers, he moves to rejoin the team, showing up at the most crucial moment, obliterating all the enemies in the way, making his path to Momo, who's on the verge of death. Okarun stood fast in the face of his injuries. He forced his body to move, even when he had nothing left to give, driven by her, his need to find her and keep her safe. Everything has led up to this. The friends he's gathered, the lives he's touched, they stand together at the brink of the end as a team, as a family, and they clear house. With Okarun and Momo on top form, working together to take on the toughest guys out of the Cur. They bring out the best in each other, in sync in heart and body, until Momo takes a chance, knowing only she can land the killing blow against the strongest of the Cur. She jumps from Okarun and tells him to get his distance. Into the fray, into certain deaths she jumps as she blips out of sight. He watches helplessly, a moment that stretches into eternity. He's frozen, helpless, and then the flood begins. He recalls every moment that got them to where they were. The world stands still because he was nobody. Until this girl, this wonderful girl, sat at his desk and took a chance to help this boy that she didn't know. She was there when he had no one, no reason to go on. She sat at his desk, walked into his life, and brought every colour he ever knew. This chance encounter turned into a friendship. She taught him what it meant to be a friend, and he poured his soul into it. She taught him what it meant to love. I mean, how is it possible? How could he not have loved her? She's everything. He would surrender every part of him to protect her, so giving up his body to save her is nothing in comparison. But how could he imagine that she might love him too? As Okarun watches, he's dragged backwards through time, every single moment that has made him into who he is. The idea that he can't tell her this, that he loves her, is too much to bear. After all, every part that matters, all the best parts of him, belong to her. Watching all that colour that she painted in his meagre existence get snuffed out into greyness is almost enough to kill him too. So when he sees that she survived, miraculously, he acts, conjuring his spiral ability in an all-out to rip the alien to pieces. As they fall to the ground, we see another new side to Okarun, a part of him unlocked by the event that just transpired. He grabs her by the shoulders and screams at her and tells her, what was she thinking? To do something so dangerous, are you an idiot? Because if she had died, then what? And he breaks down. This is so new, so earnest. This is the first proper physical act that Okarun has initiated with Momo, and a tone that he's never taken before. Every feeling of relief and rage at what she did is born from a love, one that spilled out of him when he told Vimola how he felt. And this moment is everything. The depths of his affections run deep, so much so that when Raiko Kashima catches Momo, he's ready to be taken in her place if it means that she'll be spared. Raiko Kashima looks upon the two of them, looks into Okarun and sees that his love for her is true. So true that the yokai lets them go, provided that they unveil the truth of their feelings sooner rather than later. Things have changed by the end of the Space Globalist arc. Okarun has grown dramatically as a person and in his relationship with Momo. Her semi-confession and Okarun's actions towards her in the previous arc have left the two of them in such an odd position. It's so obvious that their love runs deep, but neither of them are ready to take that next step to solidify their feelings and just let the other know, once and for all. The two of them just play chicken with each other for a long time about their feelings. For Okarun, ever since revealing his feelings in front of Vimola, he can't control them anymore. Whenever he looks at Momo, his heart races uncontrollably. He wants her to know how he feels, he just doesn't know how to tell her. Despite obvious signals from Momo that she wants him to talk about the note that she left, he just can't muster this courage to tell her the truth of his feelings. He can barely control himself. He even looks Momo directly in her eyes when saying goodbye. Okarun has reached a barrier. Until one of them are able to verbally acknowledge the love between them and just admit it, they'll linger in this limbo for eternity. However, the nature of life is that nothing can last forever. When Momo is spirited away into the board game during the Danmamra arc, Okarun has to act to save her, alone. With time running out, he knows he can't go in after her. As Unjizuma's friends accuse him of not caring enough to do that, he loses his composure. Despite everything within him begging him to follow her, to protect her, he knows that the best way for him to save Momo is to think and to leave her, so that he can get help to get her out of the board game. Returning with help, being chased by the police, and time is running out. But he is so fixated on his goal. He hasn't had the guts to tell her how he feels. He's lingered and danced around the question, and now that is sinking in. Life moves so quickly. Not so long ago he had no one, and now he has everyone. And it's all because of her. This weird and wacky and wonderful woman, he needs to tell her. The games just have to stop as he enters the world of the game. As another reminder of the fragility of life, Momo is seriously injured when they reunite. They can't just use their powers, and Okarun as a consequence feels so powerless. But what good is that now? Was it Turbo Granny's powers or Okarun that achieved the things that he's done? As Momo lays in his arms, hurt, he needs to make a choice. To run away or to stand on business like the man that he is and take down the person who hurt her. Okarun puts her aside to a safe space and runs in towards the raging yokai to get his family jewel back. He runs towards his manhood, literally, yes, but also figuratively. He has chosen that it's time to stand up and be a man. Power is something to earn. He needs to have what it takes to protect her, and that's why he sprints towards danger. Not a yokai, not some mystical warrior, but a boy in love. He thinks of Momo and knows that she would do anything to turn it around and save the day, and he can't do anything less than that. Powers or not, he can do this. If he has to fight without them, then so be it. Because love isn't words, and it isn't just strength, it's standing up when you have nothing left to give and still pushing forward. He takes on the monster face to face, risking everything, and is almost killed. But he has earned this. He has his ball back. After everything, he is finally whole. As they are forcibly pulled out of the game, Momo's stuck. She isn't able to leave because she ate the food of this world, and Okarun can't take it. He's at breaking point. He thinks back to the way that he's felt over the course of this entire ordeal, and he knows that he loves her. He's known it for so long. But if this is their last chance, then he can't keep it in anymore. What good is that? Neither of them know what will happen in the next few minutes, but he needs her to know one thing. Just one. He tells Momo that it was so hard to be apart from her, and he finally reveals the truth. He tells her that he loves her. And he can't bear to let her go and leave her here. They complicate it. He gets in his head about it. They let themselves push it back. He acts like it's an impossible thing to admit. But why? What is the point in keeping this obvious truth inside when everything is on the line? The world is literally crumbling apart around them. This is the only thing that matters. He loves her. He knows it, and in this most crucial of moments between life and death, he wants her to know it too. And now she does. And she tells him to go, and to properly confess when they're both normal, and he swears that he will. But that is a future that he has to win for them both. And it's do or die time. He faces the fairy tale card, but this time there's no question. He needs to destroy it. The future that hangs in the balance, all he needs to do to bring it into being is to act. Now. If he's finished pretending, finished being the boy that he was, finished being just Okarun, if he truly, honestly, really loves her, even though he's at the limit of his powers, just like when he faced down Zuma, he is more than just the powers that he's been granted. Okarun can push through because he has no choice but to. And he does. Spurred on by this deepest feeling of true love, he goes all out for a third time past his own capabilities and sends the yokai flying. Proving that love is more than just some physical, chemical reaction, it's something deeper, something entwined with his spirit. And this is enough to push him to be more than he was before. Okarun has finally reached his apex, and he's proven that he's more than just the powers that he's been granted. He started as just Ken Takakura. He became Momo's ideal Ken Takakura, and now he's even more than that. Because he's neither of these things. He's just Okarun. And that's the perfect man that he was always meant to be.